it's Scott here. A friend and I have just completed a video on retrofitting the factory cruise control into your W639 Vito van. We think we've come up with the cheapest way of doing this retrofit. You can buy the cruise control kit from the dealer. Depending on where you live, it's going to cost a lot of money, or you can go an alternative route, which is getting the cruise control stalk, because that is a common part used over several models, most notably the W203 C-Class sedan, which was a very popular car, so there's lots of them available. You can get them from an online braking store on eBay out of the UK or Germany, and you'll pay anywhere from sort of $20 to $50, $60 delivered. So you can pick up the stalk separately. The kit that you buy will come with a replacement plastic shroud that goes around your steering column. You don't really need that because it's very easy to modify your existing steering column shroud just by marking it out carefully and cutting the slot to accept the cruise control stalk. So for a total cost of probably around $50 or $60, you can fit the factory cruise control, which is also a speed limiting device as well, and it will look like it came out of the factory. I mean, it's got all the appropriate parts, it slots straight in. The only issue after that is that once installed it has to be activated, and you need the Mercedes Star software to do that. Now I have that here. I've got several versions of the disassembly software. Honestly, it was 5 minutes or less to plug the van in to the system, access the appropriate control module, and you basically just turn the cruise control on. You just turn it on, tell it that it's there, and away it goes. The cruise and the speed limiting device worked perfectly when we test drove the vehicle. What I suggest you do is try to find yourself an independent service centre with the Mercedes software, preferably up to about 2011 software, and get them to activate the cruise for you. There's no SCN coding or anything like that required. It's already set up for it. You just have to activate it, you just have to turn it on. If worst comes to worst and you have to go to a dealer, here in Australia they're charging around $150 to do that. They tell you that it needs to be SCN coded. Well, we certainly didn't find that was required on a 2007 model Vito. But if you have to go that route, your total exposure is going to be around 200, maybe a little bit more, to have factory fitted cruise control. That's still very cheap, considering it's going to cost you well over $1,000 if you took your vehicle to the dealer and said, I want the factory cruise fitted. You're looking at $1,500 odd, maybe more. So I think we've come up with the best way of doing this. So hopefully you'll enjoy this video and get yourself factory cruise control. Thanks for watching. This is the cruise control stalk we purchased from a online braking eBay store, and it was about $70, and it's out of the W203 Mercedes, and there's the part number there for you, 2035451124. So Sterling's undoing two T25 torque screws that hold the airbag into the steering wheel, one on each side. So once these two T25 bolts come out, you can just pull the airbag off, drop it into your lap. Don't worry, it's fine. It's got blue Loctite on it. Look, it's a pretty big bolt, isn't it? So now you should be able to just give it a bit of a wiggle and pull the wheel off. So this is the steering angle sensor, and what we're going to do is undo the screws holding that in and then take that off, and then we can place the steering wheel, the airbag and the sensor off to one side to get to the rest of the components in there. So now disconnect the electrical connector from the steering angle sensor. That's it. Now you can place all of that stuff aside. The cover over the steering angle sensor. Now we pull the sensor off. Yep. And you can unplug that.
Yeah.
Yep.
So they actually come away.
Yep.
Like that.
Remember where these plugs go. That's easy enough. Now we undo these 3 torque screws. So now we can pull the indicator stalk out and unplug it. There's a plug on the back there somewhere. When we put it back together, there you go, we'll put some silicone spray on it. And then just, that's just caught in there just to get that out. Right. Now, next thing is to remove the shroud, and we have to unclip the vinyl covering that clips into the top there. So you should be able to just pull that out. Yeah, so they're the little tags there. You've got to sort of squeeze in and pull them out. Do you want a pair of needle nose pliers?
There you go.
There you go.
She's up.
So
it's just one of those.
So that, yeah, so you just lift that out of the way. Now you should be able to pull the shroud, push that down. That's better. And I think you can.
I'll take it beyond there.
There you go. That's how you do it. Excellent. Excellent. So that's all out. I'll just explain to you how I've marked this out. So you want to do your measuring about 5 millimeters from the front face. So it's quite easy. Just measure 32 millimeters and put a mark here. Then measure 54 millimeters and put a mark there. And then using your set square, just rule 2 lines, there and there. And then this dimension from the front face to there is also 32 millimeters. So measure 32 millimeters and put a mark there, 32 millimeters, put a mark here, scribe that line. And then get yourself a drill bit of between 4 and 5 millimeters diameter, and we're going to drill a hole in the corners here to make a nice rounded corner. So we're going to do that, and then using a fine axle blade we'll cut this out to the 2 drilled holes. Now for this part here, what I'm going to do is use the box cutter to score a line. That should snap off, I hope. Yep. There we go. I can just trim that little piece off there. Now I'll take the tape off. Now with a fine bladed file I should be able to tidy this up. the finished slot. I think that's not too bad. It's not perfect, but I think that's going to look neat enough. So now we're putting the modified shroud back on. So probably if you get it onto the steering adjuster, column adjuster, and then pull it up. Yep, that's it. Yep. So we're just getting all the cables back through where they belong. So look about it.
So that is right.
Yep.
They line up.
Yep.
Now does that go underneath there?
Yeah, that goes like that.
That's it. Lines up.
Perfect. So now you can push your vinyl back in. That's it. So after the shroud goes in, the first thing is the cruise control stalk, and we're just feeding the cable down in behind the dash. So you've got to get that down, sort of right down in, because it's going to plug in behind the key.
Just trying to get it in there without.
That's it. That actually, yeah, that slides in, doesn't it? Like that, yep. Slides into the indicator.
Where is that third one? There it is. It goes in the back. Can only go one way.
Try to get that slotted in.
That's it. Yeah. Oh yeah, that feels nice when it does that. It just
Yeah,
slots
that's
in.
good.
Yeah.
So now put your 3 screws in. We're putting the 3 T20 Torx bits in. So the first one's in, then there's one in there and one here. Okay. So now the steering angle sensor goes back on. So we'll plug that in and put it back where it was. That can only really go in one way. Yep, that's good. So plugging that in. Actually, I think they screw in through that.
I think they do. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
There we go. Tightening now. And these other ones another go.
So now we can stick the steering wheel back on. That's it. Beauty. So now we're putting the 2 T25 Torx screws back in to the back of the airbag. Well, it looks the part, Sterling. Look at that.
That looks good, mate.
Yeah.
You would not think that's a retrofit.
Look at that. Looks like it came out of the factory. So now we've put all the steering wheel back together. Next thing we're going to do is remove this little compartment here and the headlight switch, and we're going to remove this side panel. Okay, so the little compartment just pulls straight out. And then we need a T20 or 25 Torx tool to get these 2 screws out here. We're doing this to give ourselves access in behind the key, because that's where the cruise control plug goes. Now, there should be a big plug on the back of that. Undo, or we might be able to just pull it out of the way there. Okay, just pull that out, pull the side panel off. Yep. So this is all designed just to give us access. So there's the module behind the key and the cruise control plug, goes into the back of this.
Actually, if I put, I'm going to take a gamble and say the clip will be on top.
Yeah.
Like that.
Okay, so we've successfully got the plug in. Now to test if it's actually connected properly, put the key in, turn it on, and then when you press the limit switch, speed limiter, the light will come on. So we know that it's been connected correctly. And then put
that, and then it's
just clips into place.
because they weren't lining up.
So there's the top of the clutch pedal, and you can see the clutch switch up the top there. We were lucky because the vehicle already had one in there, so we've now got a spare clutch switch, but that's where it goes if you need to install one. It goes up there.